All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Our special coverage continues here. Stay with us throughout the day for the very latest here from Rome. CNN This Morning starts after this.
Smoke, smoke, smoke.
Out. Hold on.
Black smoke, black smoke.
Okay. All right. Everybody can see this. This appears very clearly to be black smoke,
yes,
which would indicate, Christopher Lamb, that this is the second vote of the morning.
Correct.
And they have not reached consensus on a pope.
Yes, this is telling us, it's clearly black smoke, that there have now been 3 ballots in this conclave and the cardinals have not reached a consensus on who should be pope. Now, we were, of course, talking about if it was going to be a front runner, that maybe the white smoke would come soon. It would still be very soon to elect a pope. Of course, Benedict XVI was elected after 4 ballots, Francis after 5 ballots, John Paul II after 8 ballots. This, though, is after 3 ballots, black smoke. I think probably to be expected that the cardinals have still not been able to come to a consensus.
And to point out, Kim, as we are looking at this very clearly black smoke billowing out of the Sistine Chapel, this means that there have been 2 rounds of voting today. They have failed to reach consensus on a pope, though, as Christopher points out, last time around it would have been this afternoon and this evening, the last 2 times where they reached a consensus, so it still could happen today. But it hasn't happened as of yet, and now they will break for lunch, which means they're going to be able to talk. They're going to be able to talk this through and see where they are.
Exactly. So it's interesting to me that this is even before noon here, Rome time. So it happened pretty quickly. These votes went pretty quickly this morning. Last night was very long. There was meditation, other things. They are moving. They're in the process, just voting right now. And as Chris said, it's pretty much expected this would have been black. I think we might expect something either tonight in one of the votes that's taking place in the afternoon and evening or tomorrow.
2 votes will come this afternoon. Fascinating, though, the crowd here, because you still have thousands and thousands of people filling in. 45,000 people here last night. We're not yet there. They're coming in. I can just eyeball it. There's not as many people quite yet. However, when the smoke came out, at first, just this breath. Maybe.
Yes.
But then everybody here very quickly realized that that smoke was black.
Yes, it's huge anticipation as people, it seems everyone in Rome is on chimney watch or smoke watch. And so I think, imagine tonight there'll be a lot of anticipation as they move into what will be the 4th and 5th ballots, the time that the last 2 conclaves have come to a decision. I do think it's significant, as Kim was saying, that they seem to have got through the morning votes quicker. They've got into their stride. Last night, I think things took a while, sort of getting into the process with
the conspiracies were flying last night about what was going on in there.
But I think it was a long reflection from Cardinal Cantalamessa that kept them for longer than they would have expected. But they seem to be in their stride now, and this has come in good time.
One can only imagine the roar that will happen when there is white smoke. Father Beck, though, sitting here, people weren't, they didn't know exactly when there would be smoke, but suddenly it was clear that it was black. But as Christopher is saying, this afternoon here, in these next hours, the last 2 popes were chosen. And so many in this square are acutely aware of that and are waiting, as we literally can see, people just flooding in.
Yes, and it is quite possible that there'll be greater crowds this afternoon because, again, it's possible we will have a pope by this afternoon. No promises here. I'm glad to see that the smoke is more definable than in the past. It's definitely black, so hopefully we will know it's definitely white. There's no grayness about the smoke this time. And I think that maybe we'll see some building of consensus now as we move forward. Now, maybe not, but we don't know. But I think the people gathered there are really excited about who we're going to have, as we all are too. We want to know if this person is going to continue in the line of Pope Francis, if they're going to take us in another direction, what will that direction be, what kind of issues will they want to address, what will the personality be, will they have a smile, will they be dour? I mean, we have all of these kind of questions on what kind of Pope is going to lead us for these next number of years, and it's a great anticipation.
And as we watch the smoke, Christopher, just to be clear, they have each cast a ballot. The ballot goes in the urn or the chalice, and it's counted, it's recounted, and then burned. They add in the special chemicals, more coal-based to get the dark black smoke. They add lactose perhaps to make it more white.
Yes.
And then, I mean, literally a cardinal pushing it in there, right? Stoking that fire to cause this billowing smoke.
Well, a tradition that goes back hundreds of years. In the past they didn't have the use of these chemicals to send up the smoke signal, and now, of course, it's very important to be clear that the smoke is either black or white. Of course, Benedict XVI, when he was elected, there was a genuine uncertainty about whether the smoke was black or white.
Even
It looked grey.
Francis, it was grey. Father Del Bracco, so now they, as the smoke is coming out, we can imagine the cardinals, 133 of them, are going over to Santa Marta for a lunch and for meetings and for conversations, but absolutely no awareness from any of them about what is happening out here in the outside world or coverage of the conclave in any way.
Yes, and I'm sure that they're kind of focused, as was said by others. I think that they don't really want to stay there long, and I think the conversations will really try to understand more, having a better consensus. But also it gives time also to people to ask more questions about people they may not know, because yes, it's true that there are many languages, but there are also several cardinals who speak more than a language, so that can help actually, translate. Allow the conversation to happen maybe at the table, whether even eating, sharing the meal. And so I really hope that will help really this bond that can happen at the meals, that can really help them reach a consensus as soon as possible, because I think even though they don't see what's happening outside, but I'm sure that they all know that there are people waiting for the election of a pope, and I think that the sooner the better.
And Christopher, I'm curious. I mean, obviously, if any cardinal were to leak, now right now they're sequestered from their phones or so, but if anyone were to leak, or anybody involved in preparing the food or being with them at this time were to leak, they're excommunicated.
That's right.
Right. So excommunicated. However, we find things out at times. We found out, for example, that Pope Francis, right before he was Pope, when Ratzinger became Pope, was he was
a front runner.
He was the front runner. He came in second.
Yeah.
And then he became, so some things come out afterwards.
Yes.
Or for example, last night, we know that prayer that was supposed to go 15 minutes went 50.
Yes.
So sometimes information does come out.
Yes, it does, and often it takes a few years to come out. In 2005, there was an Italian cardinal who wrote sort of private diaries that he then were leaked anonymously about what happened inside the conclave. So there is a way of piecing things together several years after. Of course, Francis in 2005, or Bergoglio as he was, he received 40 votes, enough to block Joseph Ratzinger. However, he asked for his votes to be transferred to Ratzinger so that he could be elected, to stop a sense of a paralysis.
And something like that could happen now. There's also talk, because of course social media has nothing to do but talk about this, of whether there would be a group trying to block a progressive pope, or what's really happening with voting blocks right now. And of course we don't know.
We don't know. We don't know what's going on. We do know, because they're human beings, that they're going to go back and have lunch and talk, that they'll talk to their friends, people they're close to, and they'll be thinking again about the future of the church. What kind of leader do we want to lead us into, bring the gospel of Jesus Christ to the world today?